Let's stick with Nick. I see this as the biggest game of his life so far. Now, the first start Thursday night against the Raiders, that was a lot of pressure because if you're flopping that, you don't get a second chance. This one, though, the season's on the line. It's a do or die game. You can't lose. And I don't think he's ever really been in a situation like that. Jimmy has. Jimmy's been in games like that. He's won games like that. This is a new test for Nick Mullens. How do you guys expect him to respond? I forget who's supposed to go first. Sorry.
I can start off. I think Mullens is one of those guys. We've talked about his toughness and his grittiness. That's why Kyle loves CJ Beathard. And I think people see a lot of the same qualities in Mullens, the way he hangs in the pocket, even when it hurts the team, when he throws those picks, taking those hits. And I think he's not going to back down, but I don't necessarily think this is as easy of a win as a lot of people say with the 5-7 Washington football team. I think Washington's getting hot at the right time, and they have a great defensive line. So it will be a hard win for him. But if he pulls it off, that this is a big step, even if it's one of those Rams performances or that Giants performance earlier in the season, if he can just do enough to get him the win, that would be a big stepping stone for Mullens. But I just think it's going to be a hard game for him. If he plays well, like he did against the Rams, but they lose by 7, I still think that's a good performance for Mullens. This Washington team is getting hot at the right time.
I think Nick Mullens is going to have a Nick Mullens kind of game, which if you take out that one primetime game where he looked terrible, he's been pretty consistent. You know, he's not lighting the scoreboard up, throwing 4 touchdowns. And again, without that one game, he's also not looking terrible. He's a serviceable quarterback, and I think you're going to see a serviceable day from him. Something like 250 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, something to that effect.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's the point you made is the key point here. I don't think he's going to pull a Eagles game again. I don't think he will. I think he's going to be himself. I think he's ready for this. He's been entrenched as the starter for about a month now, and I think he can handle the pressure. I don't think of him as a guy who only responds when the season's over, when the game's over, when you're in garbage time, metaphorically. I think he can play up to his ability in this game. That being said, it's going to be a really big challenge. He's going against almost the 2019 Niners defense. It's a lot like that. They have this monster 4-man pass rush with depth, and they can just hang back and play 7 men in coverage behind it. It's tough. He's going to have to get the ball out of his hands quickly, be decisive, know what he's looking at, check the ball down a lot. He's going to have to check the ball down a lot. He doesn't do that a lot. A lot of times he wants to go down the field. He's going to have to channel his inner Alex Smith. So that'll be interesting to see. Alex versus young Alex. I don't know.
Well, one thing Mullens should do is just check out what Ben Roethlisberger was doing against Washington last week. Obviously, the Steelers lost the game, but Roethlisberger was finding Ebron a lot of times. Ebron was getting those 8-yard catches, moving the chains, and I think that's a way Jordan Reed or Ross Dwelley or Charlie Werner, whoever they throw out there at tight end, is a way to help. And then if Jeff Wilson Jr. is the running back that leads the team in carries again, I know Mostert's been battling an injury, and Wilson kind of jumped ahead of him in carries because the game was kind of out of hand at the end. But Wilson's a really good pass catcher, and I think that's a way Mullens can use those checkdowns, since those are a couple players that can make a guy miss. And then if Kyle finally gives the ball to Deebo Samuel in the first half, I think that will also help Mullens.
Yeah, it's always a good idea. Good strategy.
People keep talking about Washington's defensive line, deservedly so, but it's really the matchup of their defensive line against the 49ers offensive line. So you're going to have Grossu and Compton who are out, and I know that they're not, barn burners. They're not all-star players, but let's think about depth. If any one player on the 49ers offensive line goes down, just think about the possibilities of the names of the kind of guys we're going to be having on that offensive line against that dominant defensive line of the Redskins, of the football team, excuse me.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say is even if no one gets hurt on the Niners offensive line, they still got McGlinchey and McKivitz. They got to block, Jonathan Allen and Montez Sweat and Chase Young. So, Nick, you better get that ball out of your hands real quick. And the thing about Nick is, and throwing the ball to Jeff Wilson Jr. and Raheem Mostert, be a little bit more decisive with that. If you take too long, those guys will be out of bounds by the time you get on the ball. There's no shame in checking the ball down, especially in this game. Just take a page out of Alex Smith's book. It'll keep you healthy, Nick. This is going to be the biggest challenge it's going to be a bigger challenge for him than last week was. It's a better defense than the Bills had last week.